Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into something really important for anyone prepping for the UPSC exams.
That's right.
It's the Building and Other Construction Workers Act of 1996.
Or the BOCW Act, as it's commonly known.
Exactly.
This could pop up in both the mains and prelims.
So it's definitely worth paying attention to.
Absolutely.
This act is all about protecting the rights and well-being of construction workers all across India.
It's a sector we often overlook.
But it's essential.
Yeah, critically important for our nation's development.
For sure. And what's really fascinating is that this act, it's actually framed in line with the International Labor Organization principles.
It is.
To create sort of a safety net for construction workers.
Yes, one of India's most vulnerable labor forces.
Right. And it seems like there's this disconnect between what the act wants to do and what's actually happening out there in the real world.
Totally.
An RTI query recently uncovered a jaw-dropping amount of money.
Oh, really?
Rs 70,744 crore to be exact.
Wow.
Collected as cess under this act.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's just sitting there unused by various state welfare boards.
That is wild.
That's a huge EE sum of money.
For sure.
So the big question is what's going on here?
Right. And why should this matter to you as a UPSC aspirant?
Exactly.
This situation really exposes a big problem we have in governance. That gap between coming up with a policy and actually making it work.
Putting it into practice.
Yeah. To really understand why this unutilized money is such a big deal, we need to understand the BOCW Act itself.
Okay, let's do that.
All right.
What exactly is the BOCW Act trying to achieve for these construction workers?
So picture it as a safety net.
Okay.
Designed to protect construction workers, making sure they're safe, healthy, taken care of.
Okay.
It lays down safety rules for construction sites.
Right.
It says workers should have access to health care.
Okay.
Even education.
Wow.
And it covers things like making sure they have somewhere to live.
Like temporary housing?
Yeah, and sanitation facilities.
That's pretty comprehensive.
It is.
So where does all this unused money come from?
So the Act says employers,
Right.
the companies hiring these workers, have to pay a kind of tax called a cess.
Okay.
It's a percentage, 1 to 2% actually, of the total cost of their construction projects.
And that money goes where?
It goes straight to the welfare boards,
Okay.
set up in each state and union territory.
And these boards are supposed to use that money to
Fund all those welfare schemes.
Oh, so the health care, the housing.
Yep, the educate, everything we just talked about.
Got it. But it seems like they're sitting on a pile of cash while many workers are struggling.
Yeah, that's the problem.
What are some of the specific concerns raised in the source material?
Well, the main concern, as the RTI findings show, is just how much money is going unused.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about tens of thousands of crores just sitting there.
That's unbelievable.
It is. Take states like Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Uttar Pradesh. They have lots of construction going on.
Right.
But they also have these massive unspent balances.
So is it just bad management, or are there deeper problems?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The answer is probably a mix of things.
Okay.
The source material suggests there could be some shady stuff going on.
Shady like what?
Like employers dodging the cess.
Oh.
Or underreporting how much their projects actually cost.
So they're basically cheating the system.
Exactly. And if companies aren't honest about their expenses, the money collected for worker welfare is going to be way less than it should be.
So the actual amount meant for the workers could be even higher than we think.
It could be.
That's really worrying.
It is. And the lack of transparency makes it really tough to get an accurate picture.
Makes sense. But beyond the money issue, are there concerns about how the act is actually being implemented?
Oh, absolutely.
Are workers actually getting the benefits?
That's a huge concern. Even if the money was being used properly, there are questions about whether those welfare measures are actually reaching the workers and whether they're getting them on time.
Right.
The source material talks about the lack of proper accommodation and sanitation.
Yeah.
Especially during tough times like the COVID-19 lockdowns.
Right, when they needed it most.
Exactly. And that put workers at even greater risk. It's a difficult situation.
It is.
It is, sure.
It is. So we've got this pretty bleak picture, right? Funds aren't being used.
Right.
Implementation's slow. Workers are vulnerable.
Yeah.
It almost feels like the system is failing.
In a way, it is.
So what can we do about it?
Well,
how do we fix this?
That's the big question.
I mean, how do we bridge this gap between what the BOCW Act is supposed to do and what's actually happening on the ground.
Right.
Does the source material offer any solutions?
It does.
Okay.
It suggests a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Focusing on a few key things.
Like what?
Transparency.
Okay.
Accountability.
And really empowering workers.
Giving them a voice.
Exactly. One big recommendation is to ramp up the monitoring.
Okay.
Make sure things are being checked. Think independent audits of how these cess funds are being used.
So someone's actually looking at the books.
Because that's it.
Making sure the money's being spent responsibly.
Yep. And transparently.
That makes sense. But wouldn't it be even better to get the workers themselves involved?
Absolutely.
I mean, they're the ones who are supposed to benefit from all of this?
Exactly. Empowering them with information is crucial.
Yeah.
The source talks about creating these online platforms.
Okay.
Kind of like the eShram initiative.
Right.
Where workers can track where the money is going.
Okay.
See how it's being used, understand their entitlements.
That would be amazing.
It would.
It would give them a voice.
Yes.
Make them active participants.
Instead of just passive recipients.
Exactly. So transparency is key.
It is.
But we also need to hold state governments accountable. Oh, absolutely.
Make sure they're actually implementing the act effectively.
Right. The source talks about using incentives and penalties.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like rewarding states that are doing a good job.
Okay.
And maybe penalizing those that are lagging behind.
So a little healthy competition.
Yeah, exactly.
To get things moving.
Get sure everyone's pulling their weight.
But wouldn't it be even better if we could prevent these problems from happening in the first place? Is there anything in the source that addresses that?
There is. Yeah. And this is where it gets really interesting, especially for UPSC aspirants who need to understand how policies work.
Right.
The source raises some concerns about the proposed code on Social Security.
The CSS 2020.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
And it suggests this new code could actually dilute some of the provisions of the BOCW Act.
Wait, so a new code that's supposed to be about Social Security could end up harming the workers it's meant to protect?
That's the concern.
I don't get it. How is that possible?
Well, one worry is that the CSS 2020 might give employers more freedom to assess their own cess payments without strong auditing mechanisms in place.
So they could basically underreport even more.
They could.
And that would lead to even less money for worker welfare.
Exactly.
That seems counterproductive.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It kind of defeats the whole purpose.
It really does. And are there any other potential downsides?
Yeah. The new code might also weaken some of the worker entitlements.
Like what?
Things like accommodation,
which
were mandatory under the BOCW Act, could become optional, which could have a huge impact on construction workers.
Yeah, especially those who have to travel for work.
Exactly. The migrant workers.
So the CSS 2020 might have good intentions.
It might.
But it could end up undermining the progress made by the BOCW Act.
Yes, if it's not implemented carefully.
This is a great example of how policy decisions can have unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
You know, things that seem unrelated can actually have a ripple effect and impact different groups in different ways.
It's all connected.
It is. This brings us to something really important for UPSC aspirants.
Yeah.
Connecting this deep dive to the broader themes that come up in the exam.
Okay.
How does the BOCW Act and all these issues around it relate to the UPSC syllabus?
Well, think about what we've discussed.
Okay.
We've talked about labor rights, Social Security, the challenges of implementing government policies, the role of transparency and accountability, even the potential impact of new laws. These are all recurring themes in the UPSC mains exam.
Especially in the general studies papers.
Absolutely.
So understanding the BOCW Act, it's not just about memorizing facts.
No.
It's about understanding how policies actually work.
Or don't work.
In the real world. Exactly. And how they impact people's lives.
For sure.
It's about developing those critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
You need to analyze policies, evaluate whether they're effective, consider the ethical implications.
Those are essential skills for any aspiring civil servant.
For anyone who wants to make a difference.
Exact.
This deep dive has been so insightful.
It has.
It's really shed light on an important issue.
Yeah, one that often gets overlooked.
It has.
Yeah.
It really has. But before we wrap up,
I
want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question.
Okay, sure.
So we've talked about all these challenges. You know, the money not being used, implementation issues. What innovative approaches can we come up with to make sure this act actually helps construction workers?
That's a great question.
What can we do to truly make a difference in their lives?
Well, maybe we need to think outside the box a little.
Okay.
Move beyond just traditional government programs.
What do you have in mind?
We could partner with NGOs,
Okay.
social enterprises, organizations that are already working directly with construction workers.
Yeah, they have that on-the-ground experience.
Exactly. They could bridge that gap between policy and implementation.
Make sure the benefits actually reach the people who need them.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
What else?
Technology could play a big role.
Okay.
Imagine an app.
An app?
Yeah, specifically for construction workers.
What would we do?
It could help them register for benefits, find skill development programs, even report safety violations.
Wow, directly to the authorities.
Yep.
That would be incredible.
It would. It would give them a voice.
Yeah.
Empower them to take control of their own well-being.
I love that.
Yeah.
And the app could also help with data collection.
It could.
Right? So policymakers can track progress and make better decisions.
Exactly.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
Into the BOCW Act and all its complexities.
For sure.
I hope our UPSC aspirants found it helpful.
I hope so too.
Remember, understanding this act is crucial for both mains and prelims.
It is.
But it goes beyond the exam.
Yeah.
This knowledge helps you think critically about policies.
Yeah.
And how they impact real people.
That's what matters.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.
Yes, please do.
And for those who want to dig deeper,
yeah,
you can check out the original source material.
The Hindu.
The Hindu.
Okay.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving to make a difference.